welcome to the podcast that will be named later, I guess. I'm Wes Morgan, along with Brian Beebe. Have some patience, we'll get better, and we'll find a name for this thing. We'd like to take this moment to thank our sponsor, the Sturgis Health and Wellness Center, for being a part of this broadcast, and joeinsider.com. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. If you're a student-athlete in this area, check them out. $35 physicals. It's a walk-in clinic, no appointments needed. So thanks again to the Sturgis Health and Wellness Center. If you're unfamiliar with joeinsider.com, it is a news site covering sports in St. Joe County that launched in August. And I am the publisher and editor. A lot of eyes on the website, for which I'm very grateful. And if you haven't checked it out, log in, joeinsider.com. All your news on Burr Oak, Colon, Centerville, Constantine, Mendon, Sturgis, Three Rivers, White Pigeon, and Glen Oak sports. And Brian and I will be doing a weekly podcast highlighting the week that was, looking forward to the next slate of games. We'll have some commentary, some opinion, and we may not all agree, but we can be civil about it and have a discussion. And we hope to get a lot of feedback from the listeners. I think a lot of content will come from your feedback. And you can get a hold of us at sports@joeinsider.com. That's our email address. And you can follow along on Twitter at joeinsider and Beebe at Beebe. That's BBEEBE. Correct?
Welcome to my world of 39 years of spelling that out. Thanks, Mom. Brian Beebe. I've coached at a few different colleges. I was the women's head coach at Glen Oaks from 2003 to 2005. I moved on and coached at a couple different colleges in the Ohio area, in Ohio, in Cincinnati and Tiffin, at a couple different Division III schools. Grew up in Ravenna, Michigan, very small town, very Mendon-esque in terms of a very small-knit community where athletics is important, is popular, is something that you're kind of expected to do, and people follow, with a certain level of focus. So I'm looking forward to this. I've been in Sturgis, and this is my 6th year now in Sturgis, and look forward to a lot of positive feedback, what you're looking for from us, and hopefully what we can give you. We look to try to entertain, educate, and make you laugh, and hopefully not cringe too much.
And there will be a lot of self-deprecating humor. You can be sure of that. This just dawned on me, Brian, that the story of I felt like I knew you before I knew you. We had a mutual friend, Scott DeCamp, who used to be the prep sports editor at the Kalamazoo Gazette, with whom I worked for 7 years. You guys grew up together, have been friends for a long time, right?
Scotty D was 1 grade ahead of me at Ravenna. I've known him since I was probably 9 or 10 years old. So it is indeed a small world. Scott is now the, I want to say, managing editor for the Muskegon Chronicle. I'm sure I completely botched that, but he did move on and got a job much closer to home. And I wrote for the Gazette when he was there, did a little bit of side work for him. For the sports department as well.
So you are a Renaissance man.
I'm something, all right. But as we talked about already, we realized that the first thing I guess we can talk about is how I freely admit that I do like Nickelback. It's out there. The State, their second album, Breathe, Old Enough, Cowboy Hat. I'm going to defend it. I'm going to defend Nickelback. Okay. I'm there.
For a little context here, this show has not been. It actually has been something that we've planned on for months. I don't know that we've been working on it for months. We've probably been working on it for about 24 hours, and we're both busy. We have a lot going on, but and like I said, we will get better. But we were discussing the intro music. And I asked Beebe what his favorite bands were, because I thought we do have a lot of musical tastes in common. He said Nickelback. I honestly thought he was joking, knowing his sense of humor, and I figured I would take a little shot at it. I am not a Nickelback fan, but like I told him, we all have our flaws. I have several. It just, one of them is not liking Nickelback, but maybe we'll work a little Nickelback in here. I appreciate what you're doing. We'll play some Nickelback if that makes you feel better.
Hey, I've got plenty. We can make something happen. I've seen them in concert. Not too proud to say that either. Multiple times even. How about that? Multiple times.
Free tickets, I hope?
No. Well, one was, I saw him at Summer Celebration in Muskegon. I did see him there in probably 04 or 05. So
that is going to be something. I think this is perfect. We have a lot in common, and I think we found our first disagreement here, and we'll probably disagree about things in the future. It'll make for better radio, I think. We'll argue a little bit. You guys can argue with us. But I'm really happy that Brian's doing this with me. I think people are going to enjoy this. And with the focus being on St. Joe County, I mean, really that was the reason why I started the website in the first place. A little bit about my background, try to keep it brief. I worked at the Kalamazoo Gazette for 7 years, and I covered a lot of these schools. I'm from Sturgis and moved back here a couple years ago. So I'm familiar with a lot of these schools, and a lot of the same coaches are still around, and athletic directors, and a lot of familiar faces. But I left in 2010 to continue covering Notre Dame athletics at a publication called Blue and Gold Illustrated in South Bend. Is a weekly magazine and a website. And I had been covering Notre Dame for 5 years prior to that for MLive, the Kalamazoo Gazette, and ESPN Chicago. And after 3 years of being in South Bend and 7 years total of covering Notre Dame, it was exciting and a lot of great memories, great experiences, but I was ready for a new challenge, and I had seen what happened in the newspaper industry with coverage areas shrinking, newspaper staff shrinking, and I saw St. Joe County kind of being left out in the cold a little bit. The beauty of being in 2014 and being able to purchase, web hosting, you can create your own newspaper. You can create your own news publication, and I felt like if I was going to do it, this was the time to do it. And like I said, so far it's been pretty successful. We're averaging about 81,000 page views a month so far, so and it's climbing. So I'm very happy with that. But you're not going to hear a lot of stuff on national sports from us. I figured we're not covering national sports, so why do you care about our opinions? But there will be some times where we can kind of dip into that. There are big things going on. We've got the national title game coming up tomorrow, so maybe we'll talk about that a little bit next week. But the one thing is, Brian has some connections. I have some connections. We know some people that do cover, the Detroit Tigers, the Lions, Michigan State, Notre Dame. So from time to time, we might have some people on, and they can give us some insights into what's going on, at least on the state level or regional level. But the focus here will be highlighting the student athletes of St. Joe County, not just the student athletes, but the coaches, athletes of all ages. We'll hope to do some more coverage on people that are well beyond high school, especially in the summer months. So hopefully you find it informative, entertaining, and keep listening. So we have our first guest on this week as well, Logan Slaughter, a junior lineman at Mendon who just committed to Central Michigan University on Saturday. He'll be joining us and talking about his decision, and we're happy to have him on.
So Logan Slaughter coming in from Mendon, and he's part of a rather large group considering the smaller high schools we have in this area of Division I athletes. Three Rivers, Sturgis obviously has quite a few, going back to Drake Miller a couple years ago, who's a very good offensive lineman at Ball State, a redshirt freshman. And it's kind of amazing, really, when you think of how few high schools we have in this county, the amount suddenly in this kind of crew of Division I athletes. And Logan, kind of a rising junior, I guess you could say, not somebody who 12 months ago was really a Division I, probably a target for many schools. But it's just interesting to think, Mendon's not too far away from Ravenna, where I grew up, and in Division I athletics, there is obviously everyone's dream. I mean, that's your goal, especially as a football player, is to play, MAC football, Big Ten football, whatever it might be. And it's very interesting to see that, finally somebody from a smaller school in this area like Logan gets that look. I mean, like you were saying earlier, Glenn Sampson and Coach Swartz were saying, despite their crazy amount of success in the gridiron, Mendon really hasn't had kids even really getting D1 looks, much less obviously offers like Logan was able to get.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just because they didn't have anybody that had the talent to play at the Division I level. I find that hard to believe. Right. Sometimes athletes just get lost in the shuffle. I mean, as much as these universities budget for recruiting, it almost seems like an unlimited amount of money they have to spend on recruiting. They still miss kids. And it depends on the amount of publicity they've gotten, how many headlines they've had, if they've put together a highlight video that's getting looks on YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the recruiting process now. You have to be able to market yourself, and your high school has to be able to market you. These are all important things. And maybe there were some kids that had a shot from Mendon that just were overlooked. I know a lot of them have gone on to play at the Division III, Division II level, and have had great careers, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you're right. With all the success they've had over the years, it is a little mind-boggling that this is the first time a Mendon player has been on scholarship at a Division I university since, I think, 1952 or 53. That's incredible. So,
it really is. And
I know, talking to John Schwartz the other day about this, he said it's great for the program, and John Schwartz is not a guy who has to prove much. He doesn't have to go out there and campaign for people to take notice of Mendon football. I think they're pretty well established, but he'll even admit that this does a lot for the program, and it might do a lot for these guys in the grades behind Logan.
And I mean, I think some people have ideas in their head about Division II and even Division III football. And Division III football is not intramurals, especially at the higher levels. At the couple of Division IIIs I was at, there were kids who got looks, who were invited as undrafted free agents to NFL camps. I mean, it's Trine is really building a great program there. They've got some Sturgis kids going there next year, and their facilities are outstanding for a Division III school. And it's interesting. If you asked a kid, do you want to play Division III football? Most of them would say no. But when you get there, you realize the kids who are playing at that level, and it's, like I said, it's no joke. And the amount of time and effort put in at the Division II and III level to churn out, quality seasons and quality careers is such that I don't think enough people really understand the amount of dedication put in at that level, much less what a kid like Logan is facing, not just his senior year, because he's going to have a target on his back, and he's smart enough to know that too. I mean, anybody that plays Mendon this year is going to look for Slaughter, and is going to look to go at him, and is going to look to test themselves, puff up their chest and see if they can go at him and measure themselves. Chance, we had the same thing last year with Chance a lot of the times. Every defensive player wanted to sack Chance. Rightly so. You want to measure yourself against the best if you want to be the best. And you have to be able to be mentally strong enough to wear that target. And in my very limited and very small interaction with Logan, I think he seems like he's got a great head on his shoulders, and I think he's going to be able to accept that challenge his senior year.
Absolutely. And we get into it a little bit with him about how he arrived at this decision and really the maturity that was involved in that, because he could have dragged this out for a while. So, yeah, he's got a good head on his shoulders, and his dad, Tim, was in here with him today, and you can tell he's been raised right, and Tim's not going to let him get out of line. So, all right, we have our first guest of the first podcast. I don't know which is more exciting for Logan Slaughter, being the first guest on the podcast, or the news that came Saturday on his visit to Mount Pleasant. But we're happy to have Logan here. Committed to Central Michigan yesterday, ending the recruiting process. We had a chance to talk a little bit yesterday, but you've had a night to sleep on it now. How excited are you about knowing kind of what your future holds?
I'm extremely excited. I really look forward to being able to be a Chippewa, especially since they carry on that great offensive lineman tradition. They tend to send somebody pro just about every other year at least. So I'll definitely look forward to being a big part of that tradition.
You didn't answer the question, though. Is it more exciting being here? Or...
Oh, yeah. I think that it's probably more exciting being here right now. Cause
Logan, I guess first just kind of summarize the last 12 months for you, coming after your sophomore year and the steps you've kind of went along the way to committing to Central. Summarize those steps. What's it been like for you overall? Did you see 12 months ago this happening? What's that path been like?
Well, over probably about the past year, as a sophomore, I definitely had no idea that this was coming. I hadn't really heard about anything from anybody. I wasn't hearing from any schools at all. But then once I started hitting up the camp circuit a little bit more and people started getting my name my name started spreading around a little bit. So then I started hearing from more and more schools, and from then it just kind of carried on.
Okay. And I guess a follow-up, Central. Why Central? Academically, athletically, what stood out for them to you compared to some of the other places?
The big thing with Central is that they definitely showed they cared. They showed they actually wanted me. Some of the other schools, I kind of felt like they were almost sleeping on me, like I was kind of their second man, their second choice. But Central was right up front with me. They welcomed me with open arms. They always brought me in. Somebody was always there to just say, "Hey, Logan, how's it going?" Things like that. And I really got comfortable with their staff, and I felt like it was almost just a family.
What was the process like with your family, with coaches at Mendon, and anybody else you trusted in terms of their input? I've covered a lot of recruiting, and I know some kids would hold out for maybe one of those bigger school offers. I think you made a smart decision and taking it into your own hands. What was kind of the input and advice you were getting from people around you?
A lot of the input actually came from my parents. They were probably the biggest input that I had. They just told me, regardless of what anybody else tells you, in the end it's all about you and what you want, where you think you're going to fit best. So I decided to kind of take the factors into my own hands and try to decide where I could see myself for those 4 to 5 years. And I decided to pick Central Michigan because I just felt really comfortable with them.
You told me Saturday, it was just a level of comfort and family vibe there. I've heard others say that when they've made their decisions. So what truly makes it different? Because you've seen a lot of other programs in the last year. You've made a lot of trips. What does distinguish Central from some of these other places?
Probably, to me, the biggest thing that really distinguishes Central from any other place is just being able to have somebody that you can always just talk to. The coaches, they aren't just your coaches. They kind of act like father figures almost. They set examples for you. And not only that, but they also care about your academics, and they tell you, always make good choices. Don't go do something stupid because that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. And it won't just affect you. It'll affect the players around you and the whole team. So they really show that they care about you.
Logan, having coached at a couple different colleges, the one thing I would tell kids, the one piece of advice, even if they felt as though they had their first choice picked out, was visit as many places as possible, because you don't really know what you like and don't like if you only have one place in your mind. When you visited Central, what was that one thing, besides the family aspect, what was another thing that stood out for you that made it feel like, okay, I can't get blank somewhere else, athletically, academically, whatever that was?
The one thing that I definitely do not think that I could get as well anywhere else as compared to Central is, like I said before, that professional football tradition where they will push you to be the best that you can be and get you to that next level. Mm-hmm. They always seem to put out, the highest caliber linemen in the entire NCAA, I think, and they really push you to be the best that you can be and force you to excel.
Okay. Kind of changing subjects, I guess, a little bit, Logan. I grew up in a very small town as well. What has it been like growing up in Mendon, a town where athletics is important, representing your community is important? How has that affected not just recruiting, but your view kind of the bigger world in terms of Division I athletics and things like that? What have you kind of have in your foundation that you could rely on, or that you think helped you in this time?
The one thing that I always knew that I could fall back on is that I always had those coaches, that would be there if I needed to talk to them, like my high school coaches. One of them was definitely John Schwartz. He was probably the biggest one that I could go and talk to if I needed any advice or anything. And I knew that I had the community backing me up as well, because I really wanted to be that kind of example for them, so that maybe their kids wanted to look up to me, or future athletes even, they would know that they can make it to that next level, even if they just came from a small town. And it is possible no matter where you're at.
Awesome. Obviously, maybe not something that might darken the mood, but the last 2 years haven't exactly ended probably the way you'd wanted to at the hands of Muskegon Catholic Central. Your thoughts, I know it's a long way away, but your thoughts for next year. I know it's a few months off, but we know how quickly August comes here, sitting in early April. What are you looking forward to most for your senior year right now?
The biggest thing about my senior year, one of the larger things is definitely the league change, not being in the SJV anymore. That's huge. We're playing brand new teams we haven't played in forever. And I really, really think that we're going to make a deep playoff run. We're probably going to meet up with MCC again. I'm definitely looking forward to that rematch and maybe getting some nice, sweet revenge on them. So I think that'll be a lot of fun.
I guess one last follow-up. What's that been like from a player perspective? Because scheduling for you guys has been an issue the last couple of years. It's no secret. What is that like? Is that something that you guys talk about right now, looking forward to next year, having that solid schedule? Because, I mean, Constantine's struggling. There are definitely schools around this area that struggle to fill those 9 games. Is that something that's a plus for you guys right now? Is that something you talk about, or you just let it come when August comes?
To me personally, I just kind of let it come when August comes. To me, it's not such a big difference about like who we're playing, because I know that we're going to have to go out there and play our best game. Because being Mendon, everybody's going to play 110%. They're going to play as fast and as hard as they can, and you never know what they're going to throw at you. So it's definitely, I just kind of let it come whenever the season comes.
Okay.
We're just now starting to have a little bit of decent weather. I guess it's baseball season now that the snow's all melted. Here you've got spring break, and then you get right into the action. You've got the big life decision out of the way. Now you got baseball season coming up. How excited are you to get going?
Oh, I'm extremely excited. I cannot wait for this baseball season to start up. We've got a solid pitching rotation coming up, and Caleb McCarroll and Robert Riley are the other two, bigger pitchers that we have. They'll probably be throwing all the league games, and I definitely look really forward to this because I think that we're gonna be a contender for a league championship and a district title again.
You had mentioned to me too, kind of going back to the central topic, that playing baseball there might be an option. We don't know yet. You've got to talk to the coaching staff, but has the football staff indicated that they would be okay with that?
Yep, they have. I talked with head coach Dan Enos a little bit about it, and he said that he could see me playing baseball for them and that he would be fine with it, and that dual sporting might seem like it would be a very difficult thing, but if I really wanted to push forward and try to dual sport and see how it went for maybe a year or two, that they would definitely be okay with that. And I would definitely look forward to that because there's not very many athletes out there that get the opportunity to dual sport like that. So I think that'd be great to do.
In a county with only really 8 high schools, to have you committed to Central, Chance Stewart to Western, Rachel Anderson, a junior here at Sturgis, committed for volleyball, Tegan Reeves, obviously, to Western for a couple of sports. What would your advice be to younger kids, if you, looking back on the whole thing, besides the parents and your coaches, what's one piece of advice you would give somebody listening to this, a freshman or an 8th grader who maybe has those aspirations? One thing that you would say to them looking back on this process over the last 12 months or so?
The one thing that I would probably say to them is never give up. You got to keep on pushing yourself every day. If you mess up here or there, it's okay. You can always move on. And one thing that we always say at Mendon is it's either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. So it's either you can look back on that and you can regret not pushing yourself and maybe dropping something that you really wanted to do in the future, or you can push yourself and you get that discipline and you can be really good at it in the future and you can excel at what you do. So it's either you keep on pushing yourself or you can just give up. So my number one advice would probably just be never quit.
The reaction of maybe fans from different programs, that's the one part of recruiting too where it can take a really ugly turn. They love you, then you make a decision, and if it's not their school, they hate your guts. Even on the joeinsider.com Facebook page, where I don't allow a bunch of nonsense, there are some people saying you made the wrong choice because they're either Western fans or something else. Have you heard much of that on social media, and do you kind of get a kick out of it?
I actually have not heard very much of that, but honestly, I'll get a little bit of a kick out of it here and there. I might take a couple shots, but that's life. Not everybody's going to always support what you do, and you just got to move on, know that you made the right choice, and that's your decision to make, so just go forward with it.
Well, we appreciate you coming in and being part of the first podcast here, and wish you the best of luck with the rest of, you get spring sports coming up in a full year. You're going to be playing 3 sports next year?
It's in the cards that I'll play 3 sports. Right now, I'm not so sure that I will be playing basketball or not, but I'm still on the fence about that. But, yeah, most likely I will be doing 3 sports again, so I'll have a full year again.
Well, whatever you decide, good luck and congratulations on the decision, and thanks for being here today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So that was an interview with Logan Slaughter, our first of many interviews. And moving forward, in the weeks and months ahead, I think our goal with this podcast, first and foremost, is to be local. I mean, that's our main focus is to be local, but be local with the intent of informing not just who beat who, but to try to give you as much of a why as possible, and to do that in a way that looks forward as much as it does backward, even more so looking forward, since it is going to be a weekly thing. And so we're going to have to do as much predictive stuff as we do reviewing. And during the spring, obviously there's a lot of sports, especially at the bigger Sturgis and Three Rivers schools. There's a lot of things going on. So our goal is to try to break down maybe a sport a week or a couple sports a week, and to do so with an eye toward all of the county schools, doing our best to give everyone as much coverage as possible. And again, doing so in a way that's fun, in a way that makes you want to keep coming back to us and listening to us, and not coming back to us and simply saying, okay, who beat who and why.
And we want you to hear from some people that maybe otherwise you wouldn't. I remember early on when I started JoeInsider.com, someone from Three Rivers mentioned to me, I've known of John Schwartz forever at Mendon, but I've never heard him speak until some of our video interviews ran, and that hadn't occurred to me. I'm coming from, I guess, the last few years of a beat where everything is recorded and everything is used. Everything is being filmed on a cell phone. And I want to bring that to JoeInsider.com, but now I'm just now realizing that even some people that have been around for a while, or some of these student athletes that are have a higher profile, you may not know them in the neighboring town, and we want to introduce you to them. So we look forward to having guests on every week. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. I know it's going to be tough to get somebody in here every week, but coaches, athletes, other movers and shakers in the athletic realm in St. Joe County, I think we can bring in some interesting people, and it'll be entertaining as well.
And look at JoeInsider.com, where later in the week we'll probably post a preview of what the upcoming podcast is. Please hit us up for ideas you may have, things you would like to see, wacky sound effects, if you want us to play a trivia question of the week to guess one of our ages, winning lottery numbers, whatever you'd like.
No ages.
We're taking requests.
I will lie about that. One thing we forgot to mention is where we can be found on social media. On the Twitter sphere, I know Brian Beebe is a favorite on Twitter. His witty commentary throughout the day, well, after school hours, of course, can be found where?
At Beebe, BBEEBE.
I am at Joe Insider, and just a little note there, like I explained to a lot of people recently, there is no one at JoeInsider.com by the name of Joe. That was a play on words. I thought St. Joseph County, JoeInsider.com would not be that big of a stretch, but there are a lot of people convinced that my name is Joe. That's okay, and like I tell everybody, I will answer to Joe. I have answered to much worse, and if you want to call me that, that's fine. But just to clarify, there is no Joe at JoeInsider.com. But you can reach out to us on social media. We want to hear your feedback. Keep it clean. Keep it civil. But if you have any topics that you want us to discuss, any questions, you may appear on the next podcast.
And lastly, while we're talking about names, anyone that wants to sponsor, we will gladly name this after whatever your check says. So whatever you want to sign the check over to. Until then, we are the podcast, the TBA podcast. We're still kicking names around. So whatever you would like it to be, make that check out to Joe Insider, and your name can be right here.
Whatever it ends up being, we appreciate you listening and hope you tune in next week.